Hey everybody, I apologize for the lack of content recently, but I've just been super busy with work and just other life things. But I'm getting back into the swing of things starting with this. So here we go. So I believe that Bellamy is drawing the Straw Hat Jolly Roger on that piece of unrippable cloth, because you can see a little bit of the marks from the straw hat at the top, those little edges there. Plus you see the band kind of going across it, which will eventually, I think, will be a red band. So I think what's going on is that he's making this flag so that once he reunites with Luffy, and he will because he has a piece of the Vivre card that they gave out by the end of Dressrosa, once he reunites with Luffy, he'll hand over that unterrible flag. He'll hand it over to Luffy in order to prevent another incident like this one ever happening again. We start off in Okobore Town, and apparently Tama was not the only child that had the idea of drinking some of the water to stop herself from feeling like she's actually starving to death. Another kid did the same thing, and then a villager is asking for some of those medical herbs. And then you see the shot of like how gross and toxic and polluted the water actually is in Wano. And it's part of like the build-up, building up the menace. Kaido and his men are bad because look at what they're doing to the environment. Then we get this beautiful shot of the Paradise Farm deep inside Bakura Town. And at first, like, I saw all these panels of food and really like delicious looking ingredients. And because my mind has been conditioned from Whole Cake Island, I honestly thought that this was the chapter where Sanji was gonna jump into the picture and do something. Again, just because of like the Whole Cake Island flashbacks that I have ingrained. That being said, there's this man who has like 5 pieces of silver and he's kind of being like turned away. And in that same panel, you kind of see like a gate, sort of like a prison cell, kind of a door that leads inside of these mountains or this rock, because the farm is at the base of like these mountains. So I'm kind of wondering if that's kind of like the same tunnel or the same cave or the same opening that leads to where Kid is being kept. Or maybe that's just where they store the food. Yeah, because you wouldn't be able to keep Kid locked up inside of something that uses a metal gate or a metal door, because he would just use his ability to bust out of there. Last time we saw him, I think he was inside of like a wooden prison of sorts. Anyway, we get introduced to Speed, who is a Horse Smile user. She's a headliner. This has already been established. But I think what's funny is that the fact that she's a Horse Smile user is just Oda giving himself an excuse to draw another centaur-like creature in the world of One Piece. They are centaurs that aren't actually centaurs. It's just kind of like a freak accident. Like in Thriller Bark, there was this zombie that was stitched up together to give him that appearance. And then in Punk Hazard, there were some people that had lost use of their legs, and so Law performed surgery on them and gave them animal legs instead so that they would be able to walk, and they ended up looking like centaurs as well. And then in Speed's case, her artificial devil fruit malformation ended up giving her the lower half of a horse. Not only that, but she also has the smile of a horse. It's kind of funny when I saw her smile. She kind of looks like a cow, like a little calf, but I can definitely hear her go like... And then she has this ongoing gag where she kind of gloats about being able to see 350 degrees, which is actually true for horses. I looked this up. Horses actually only have 2 main blind spots. One on their back, because obviously they can't see their butt, they can't see behind them, and then one little small blind spot here near the front of their eyes. But for the most part, their range is pretty wide. I mean, it's not Byakugan level by any means, but it's still pretty impressive. I can't wait to see Speed get one-shotted by Luffy, just like he's been one-shotting most of the antagonists in this arc. Anyway, there's a scene where these people, these firemen, rush in to try and put out the fire that's been started. And that's actually a reference to the Edo period firefighters of Japan. They would actually wet their jackets and go, to try and put out these fires. Back then, fires were extremely common because the houses were made out of very flammable material. So you had like these different groups, these different squads that would rush in to try and put out these fires. And they would carry these flags on poles that you see in the chapter, and they're called matoi. And they're basically like these warning signs for people about the fact that there's, an actual fire going on. What I found out, though, is that eventually this whole thing about putting out fires kind of turned into this art form in which the people use the ladders to do acrobatics. So it's literally like you're watching this circus performance go down as they're trying to put out the fire. And they still do these performances for show in Japan. So what you see in this chapter is Speed being pissed off because of this. She's like, just stop fooling around, just put out the fire already. We find out that Hold'em's lion abdomen is called Kamijiru, and also apparently Okiku recognizes, or at least seems to be familiar with, Shutenmaru's name. And then we find out that there's a structure similar to what happened back in Subodi Archipelago when Luffy punched that celestial dragon and they called in an admiral. So in this case, Okiku tells Luffy that if he messes with Hold'em, he risks getting Jack the Drought involved and just turning this town into another Zou, essentially. We find out that Jack is the designated ruler of Kuri, which is the area that they're in, which makes sense considering the fact that there's an area that looks like a wasteland to go along with Jack the Drought's name. We know that Kaido has 3 calamities in total, 3 Yonko commanders. That's the same thing, Yonko commanders, disasters, calamities, whatever you want to call them. We only know about Jack. We don't know who the other 2 are or where they're at, but I'm pretty sure they have their own regions that they're in charge of as well. And so just like Jack was put in charge of this wasteland area, there has to be somebody who's in charge of this snowy storm area as well. And you know, I'm actually beginning to think that this character called Shutenmaru is actually either Okiku or Law. There's this moment where Okiku gets captured and you clearly see Luffy and Zoro chilling in the background, just not caring at all. And Zoro, but especially Luffy, are really good at gauging people's strength. So I'm guessing that the reason why they're this way, they're very like, you know, like nonchalant about this, or just like, you just gotta take care of yourself, is because they know that she's very strong. And then given Law's ability, I'm pretty sure that stealing things would be extremely easy for him. Anyway, Luffy kind of gets the rundown and he understands that these people in this town are basically being held hostage because they're afraid of Jack. Well, they're afraid of Hold'em calling Jack. So he starts the speed blitzing fest of the climax of this chapter. Speed arrives with the wagon of food and Zoro turns to Okiku and tells her, we're just gonna grab this and run. It's gonna be very quick, so get ready. He speed blitzes the fodder. The only person who's able of detecting him doing this is Speed, because you get the little like light bulb like, huh? What happened there? That little spark that Oda drew above Speed's head is the same spark that he drew with Hawkins in this chapter when he notices Law. And I've noticed that he also does the same thing with Usopp, like by the end of Dressrosa. So I'm guessing that's also kind of observation Haki. So this could kind of imply that maybe Zoro was able to bypass Speed's observation Haki. So if that's the case, that's a very impressive speed feat for Zoro, but still not as impressive. And I have to be fair here. I have to be honest. It's still not as impressive as what Sanji did back in the wedding when he was able to bypass Katakuri's future sight observation Haki. Okiku and the Komainu are at the front of the wagon with the food, so they're about to leave. Meanwhile, Luffy speed blitzes Hold'em and Kamijiru, whatever, the lion abdomen thing, punches him, frees Tama, okay, and grabs her and then asks her about what happened. She tells her about the pliers and he gets pissed, you know, and he's already pissed to begin with because Luffy values freedom above all things and he didn't like the fact that these people were being held hostage. So the lion Kamijiru got off easy, but his owner Hold'em did not, because he gets a straight up Red Hawk to the face. And it's such a great panel. It's literally like mimicking that which happened in Subodi when he punched the Celestial Dragon, except because it's Red Hawk, Hold'em is actually spitting out fire from his mouth after the hit lands, which I thought was an excellent, excellent artistic touch. I mean, I still kind of wish that other characters would have their time to shine and be able to take other characters out, not just, you know, mainly Luffy. But that was a great page of him landing that Red Hawk. It was just so well drawn. It was so great. But what I liked about that scene the most is that he drops Tama, and I think he does so because he's confident in his speed, in his ability, to the point where I think he thought, I can finish this guy off, I can land a Red Hawk and still have time to catch Tama before she hits the ground. Because that's just how fast-paced Luffy is now. I mean, technically, Red Hawk is Armament Haki plus Gear Second, but his entire body is still in base. It's just his arm that he's using Gear Second on. So I'm pretty sure he's like, yeah, no biggie. I can drop the kid and then have time to catch her before she falls. And I don't know if Hold'em is knocked out or not, but even if he is, I would pay attention to his sword doing something in the next chapter, because there's absolutely no reason for him to name the sword and name, I think he says this is the chasing sword, Karakuri, right? There's no reason for him to give us these names if the sword's not going to do anything. And actually the word Karakuri means trick or mechanism in Japanese. So I wouldn't be surprised if that sword does something independently of its owner in the next chapter. We also have Law in this chapter, and his design is actually based off of people back in the Edo period of Japan called komuso, and komusos were basically beggar monks that would walk around playing the flute. And I just want to just give Oda major props, because something as basic as Law's disguise in this chapter is even based off of something that relates to Japanese culture of old times. So it's just incredible, the attention to detail that we've gotten in terms of the Japanese historical and cultural influence within this arc. Like I said before, Hawkins uses his observation haki and senses that Law is pretty strong. I'm a little bit worried that Oda is gonna off-panel, off-screen this fight. Then again, it might not be like a full-fledged fight, especially because we know that Luffy and Zoro, or according to what Zoro said, they're leaving that area very soon. They're just, taking the food elsewhere. So they might run into Law and Hawkins as they try and exit the town. That being said, I said this before in another review, but I'm pretty sure that Law teleported to Bakuta town, because there's no way he would have gotten there before Hawkins, because Hawkins was like literally at the entrance. And last time Law was still with Beppo near the castle ruins of the Kozuki clan, near that hill. So I'm pretty sure that he switched himself into that town, and that's why he got there, sooner than Hawkins did. And both Law and Hawkins have pretty hacks devil fruit abilities, so it would be nice to at least get some form of a clash between them. Law has the ability to manipulate anything within his medical room's range. Within that perimeter, he could just do whatever he wants. And I mean like pretty much anything. He can put your soul into somebody else's body, for crying out loud. That's what he was doing in Punk Hazard. And in my opinion, Law was severely nerfed back in Dressrosa because Oda wanted Luffy to be the one to take down Doflamingo. But if he's actually using his devil fruit power to its full potential, that is some scary, crazy thing. The only downside of that, though, is that I think it was mentioned in Dressrosa that the bigger the room, the more stamina it costs him, to the point where he even said that he ended up having to give up years of his life to make a room at one point. And I think Hawkins could be a great match for Law, because he can transfer damage. So, Law has to be able to pinpoint, what to aim for, and then be able to land his attacks in order to deal some damage. So in a way, the way that they use their devil fruit powers, both of them are kind of like magicians, if you will. There's going to be a lot of shifting if this actually happens. It'd be cool to see a clash between these two, because there's room for a lot of creativity in terms of this match. But I'm kind of worried, like I said, I'm kind of worried that Oda's going to off-screen it. Regardless of whether that fight actually goes down or not, or we actually see it go down, one thing is for sure, Jack is on his way. You can hear those mammoth stomps, those mammoth footsteps approaching, because he's going to find out about what Luffy did to hold him pretty soon. So, just expect him to see him barging in through some buildings. Roses are red, violets are blue. We'll get the Rogers-based Mammoth Boys hype once Holden is through. That's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you did. Overall, I thought the chapter was good. Comment down below with your thoughts, and I'll catch you guys later for more One Piece content. Take care. Bye.